The question lands in the middle of noise and movement. A Saturday afternoon police appreciation fair fills the town square with families, food trucks, uniformed officers, and phones already raised for photos. Near a folding table, a retired German Shepherd lies perfectly at heel, calm, disciplined, still. His eyes track the crowd with quiet precision, the way working dogs never forget how to watch. The handler is explaining retirement pamphlets when a small voice cuts through the air. A little girl, Emma Reed, tugs hard on her father's hand and points straight at the dog. "Can I buy that retired police dog, Daddy?" Her father, Daniel Reed, stops so abruptly someone bumps into his back. He does not apologize. His fingers tighten around Emma's wrist. His breathing stutters. Across the concrete, the German Shepherd lifts his head. One controlled movement, ears forward. Eyes locking onto Daniel's face with sudden focus. The crowd chuckles. Phones tilt closer. Someone jokes about kids wanting hero dogs. But the dog does not move. He stands rigid, balanced, tail motionless. If you have ever seen a moment where a crowd laughs while something far more serious is happening underneath, stay with this story. These are the kinds of moments that reveal who we really are under pressure and what loyalty looks like when the uniform comes off. If you want more grounded, emotional canine stories like this, subscribe to Brave Canine Stories. And tell us in the comments as you listen, what would you have done if you were standing there when that dog looked back? A uniformed supervisor steps closer. Wind snaps the banners overhead. The noise fades. Why is a retired police dog staring at one man like he never forgot him? The moment stretches after the freeze, thin and uncomfortable. Lieutenant Karen Doyle, the supervising officer for the event, steps closer with a practiced smile that does not quite reach her eyes. She asks Daniel Reed if everything is all right. It is a simple question, meant to smooth things over. Daniel forces a nod in response, but his gaze never leaves the German Shepherd. Up close, the dog's name tag is visible, Atlas. The sight of it hits Daniel harder than he expects. He swallows, his throat suddenly dry. His eyes begin picking up details without his permission, the way they used to on duty. The faint scar under Atlas's left ear. The way the dog sits just slightly angled, positioning his body between the handler and the crowd. It is not sloppy. It is protective. Instinctive. No civilian notices these things. Daniel does, and that knowledge tightens something in his chest. Emma, unaware of the storm breaking inside her father, keeps talking. She crouches slowly the way she has been taught, palms on her knees, careful not to rush. She asks if the dog is friendly. Her voice is gentle, curious, unafraid. Officer Lucas Grant answers with an easy confidence born of repetition. He explains that Atlas is very well trained, very calm, and enjoying retirement. As he speaks, he gives a quiet, single-word command. Stay. Atlas obeys. He does not move an inch. But he also does not look away. His eyes remain fixed on Daniel, muscles held tight under his coat, focus sharp and deliberate. It is subtle, but wrong. A trained dog should break attention when commanded, should reset and refocus on the handler. Atlas does not. That is the first warning sign, small but undeniable. Daniel feels his body reacting before his mind catches up, his shoulders round inward as if bracing for impact. His jaw locks, teeth pressing together hard enough to ache. He hears his own voice before he realizes he is speaking, the name slipping out under his breath. Atlas. Officer Grant hears it. His head turns sharply. Lieutenant Doyle hears it too. Her posture shifts, alert now, eyes moving between Daniel and the dog. The crowd keeps chatting, laughing, unaware that anything significant has happened. Daniel notices more as seconds pass. Atlas is older. The gray around his muzzle is heavier than Daniel remembers. His movements are slower, more deliberate, but his posture is unchanged. He still looks like a dog waiting for a job to begin. The realization lands with weight. Guilt follows close behind. Daniel had told himself Atlas would adapt, would bond with someone else, would forget. Standing here now, watching the dog hold focus through command, he knows that was a lie he needed to survive. A memory surfaces uninvited. Flashing lights. raised voices. The smell of hot asphalt and adrenaline. Daniel remembers the last command he ever gave Atlas, shouted over chaos, trusting the dog without question. He remembers the aftermath, the paperwork, the meetings, the way everything unraveled after. He had walked away believing he had no choice. Atlas breaks discipline just slightly. He lowers his head a fraction, a gesture so small most people would miss it. Daniel does not. It is something Atlas used to do after long shifts, leaning into quiet acknowledgement rather than play. Daniel's hand twitches, fingers curling as if to return the signal automatically. He stops himself just in time, pain flashing across his face at the restraint. Lieutenant Doyle asks the question directly now, her tone neutral but firm. She wants to know if Daniel has prior canine experience. Daniel answers too quickly. He says he volunteered around dogs years ago. The lie sits poorly in the air, thin and unconvincing. Atlas lets out a low, controlled whine, catching himself almost immediately and returning to stillness. Officer Grant tightens the leash, eyes narrowed. Lieutenant Doyle's expression hardens. She no longer sees a harmless family moment. She sees a problem forming, and she knows it is not coming from the dog. Scene goal: isolate the protagonist and plant the first piece of evidence. Daniel is guided away from the table toward a quieter edge of the square. Emma follows, clutching his hand. Officer Grant stays with Atlas. Lieutenant Doyle asks direct questions. Daniel admits the truth in fragments. He was Atlas's handler. Years ago. The admission changes everything. Lieutenant Doyle's tone shifts from polite to procedural. She radios for verification. Daniel feels the walls closing in. The fair noise fades behind him, replaced by the hum of radios and authority. Antagonistic pressure appears subtly. Mart Bell insists this conversation should happen elsewhere. He worries about disruption. The suggestion to move Daniel away from the dog feels like separation, and Daniel resists quietly. He asks to stay within sight. Daniel takes a small action that becomes evidence later. He asks Officer Grant for permission to give Atlas water, citing heat stress signs. Grant hesitates, then agrees. Daniel kneels, gives Atlas water using the old routine. Atlas relaxes visibly, confirming the bond. A bystander records the interaction. Emotional beat. Daniel apologizes to Atlas under his breath. Emma hears it and asks why he is sorry to the dog. Daniel cannot answer yet. End beat. Lieutenant Doyle receives confirmation over the radio. Daniel Reed, former K-9 handler, separated under investigation. The word investigation hangs heavy. Lieutenant Doyle does not touch Daniel's arm, but her presence guides him all the same. She angles her body away from the demonstration area, subtly directing him toward a quieter edge of the square where the noise thins and the crowd's attention dulls. Daniel goes with her, knowing resistance would only harden the situation. Emma stays glued to his side, her small hand clenched tightly in his. She keeps glancing back over her shoulder, eyes searching for the German shepherd. Officer Grant remains with Atlas. The distance between Daniel and the dog is not far, but it feels deliberate. Separation, even partial, changes the air. Daniel feels it immediately, like a line being drawn. Lieutenant Doyle stops near a row of vendor trucks and turns to face him. Her questions come clean and direct now. She asks if Daniel knows the dog. She asks how he knows the dog. She asks when he last worked with canines. Daniel answers carefully at first, choosing words that delay rather than deny. But the pressure is steady, professional. Eventually, the truth slips out in fragments. He says Atlas was his partner. Years ago. The admission shifts everything. Lieutenant Doyle's posture changes. Her voice loses its casual edge and takes on a procedural cadence. She reaches for her radio. Daniel hears the clipped phrasing, the request for verification, the reference to old personnel records. The fair noise fades into the background, replaced by the hum of radios and the unspoken weight of authority. Daniel feels the walls closing in. He has lived this before. He recognizes the feeling of being reduced to a file, a case number, a problem to be managed. Emma senses his tension and steps closer, pressing against his leg. Mark Bell appears again, unease clear on his face. He insists, politely but firmly, that this conversation should continue somewhere more private. He gestures toward a nearby municipal building, citing safety and disruption. The suggestion lands like a threat. If Daniel moves away from the square, he loses visibility, he loses witnesses. More importantly, he loses Atlas. Daniel resists quietly. He says he would prefer to stay where they are. He does not raise his voice. He does not argue, he simply asks to remain within sight of the dog. Lieutenant Doyle studies him for a long moment, weighing optics against procedure. She nods once, allowing it. The decision matters. Daniel notices Atlas shifting slightly, ears angling toward his voice even from a distance. The connection holds. Daniel takes a small action that seems insignificant in the moment, but will matter later. He tells Lieutenant Doyle that Atlas is showing early heat stress signs. He points out the shallow breathing, the stiffness in the hind legs, the way the dog keeps adjusting his stance. Officer Grant hesitates. Atlas has water, but Daniel explains the routine Atlas used to respond best to, how he would drink more if approached calmly, if the bowl was held just right. After a pause, Officer Grant agrees. He hands Daniel the bowl and loosens the leash slightly. Daniel kneels in front of Atlas, keeping his movements slow and respectful. He gives the water using the old rhythm, tilting the bowl, pausing, letting Atlas set the pace. Atlas drinks deeply, tension draining from his posture. His tail lowers. His shoulders soften. The change is visible to anyone watching. A bystander nearby records the interaction, drawn by the quiet intimacy of the moment. Daniel does not notice. As Atlas finishes, Daniel murmurs an apology under his breath. It is not loud enough for the officers, but Emma hears it. She asks him why he is sorry to the dog. The question lands heavier than any accusation. Daniel cannot answer. He looks away, blinking hard. Lieutenant Doyle's radio crackles. The response comes through clearly enough for Daniel to hear pieces of it. His name, his former role. The note attached to his separation. Former canine handler. Separated under investigation. The word investigation hangs in the air, heavy and unresolved, and Daniel knows the situation has crossed into something far more serious than a misunderstanding. Lieutenant Doyle turns slightly away from Daniel as her phone vibrates. She listens without interrupting, her expression tightening in controlled increments. Daniel hears only fragments of the conversation, but he does not need the full words. He catches phrases like, "old case," "keep it contained," "no public mess." The tone is not angry. It is cautious. The kind of caution that comes from history. The department would rather not reopen. When Lieutenant Doyle ends the call, she does not look at Daniel right away. That pause tells him everything. The system wants this quiet. Managed, forgotten. Before she can speak, a man in a dark polo shirt with a private security badge clipped at his belt steps forward. He introduces himself as event security and cites safety concerns. His voice is calm, rehearsed. He gestures toward Atlas and suggests that the dog be moved away from the crowd until the situation is resolved. The wording is polite, but the intent is clear. Remove the variable. Officer Grant stiffens at the suggestion. He glances at Atlas, then back to the security contractor. Atlas senses the shift instantly. His ears come forward. His body squares, weight balanced evenly over all four paws. He does not growl. He does not bare teeth. He does not move without command. The warning is in the stillness, in the readiness, in the way his eyes track the man now speaking. Officer Grant issues a calm stay command. Atlas obeys immediately, holding position, but the tension does not leave his frame. Anyone with experience can see it. This is not aggression. It is assessment. Daniel feels something inside him fracture. The posture. The language. It pulls him backward through years he thought he had buried. He remembers being told to stand down, being told to let others handle it, being told to sign statements he knew were incomplete. He remembers reports rewritten in cleaner language. He remembers being advised, quietly, to walk away for the good of the department. His chest tightens. His breathing goes shallow. Emma senses the shift before he speaks. She wraps both arms around his leg, pressing her face against his thigh. The simple weight of her brings him back just enough to keep standing. Lieutenant Doyle looks between the security contractor and Officer Grant, weighing options. She knows moving Atlas would escalate things. She also knows refusing could create friction with the event organizers and command. The pressure stacks from every direction. Daniel feels the urge to surrender rising, to take Emma and leave. To protect her from uniforms, from radios, from the weight of his past. He opens his mouth, almost agreeing to step away. That moment, that near breaking point, is the closest he has come in years to giving up without a fight. Then Atlas shifts his head slightly toward him. Not breaking stay, not moving forward. Just acknowledging. Daniel whispers without thinking. It is a single word, in German, soft and automatic, a command he has not spoken aloud in years. Atlas responds instantly, lowering his head and relaxing his stance just enough to signal compliance without disengagement. The movement is precise. Familiar. Officer Grant freezes. His eyes flick sharply to Daniel. That command is not taught to civilians. It is not part of public demonstrations. It is advanced handler language, used only in active service. The recognition hits him hard. Lieutenant Doyle sees the exchange. She sees Officer Grant's reaction. Another piece slides into place. The crowd, sensing a shift, grows restless. Murmurs ripple outward. Phones rise higher. The atmosphere thickens, no longer curious but uneasy. Lieutenant Doyle makes a decision. She steps forward and announces that all demonstrations are paused until further notice. Her voice carries authority without explanation. The crowd reacts with a low wave of sound, disappointed, confused, frustrated. As the noise swells, the space around Daniel, Emma, and Atlas tightens. The pressure cooker seals. Whatever happens next will not be quiet, and everyone present can feel it coming. The shift comes from an unexpected direction. As the crowd settles into an uneasy pause, Dr. Helen Moore, the department veterinarian assigned to the event, steps forward. She has been watching quietly from the edge, arms folded, expression thoughtful rather than alarmed. When Lieutenant Doyle gestures her over, she does not hesitate. Dr. Moore kneels near Atlas, careful to stay within his line of sight. She does not touch him at first. She studies his breathing, the set of his shoulders, the way his eyes flick toward Daniel even when he is holding position. When she finally speaks, her voice is calm, clinical, and grounded in observation rather than opinion. She explains that Atlas's recent behavioral notes show a pattern. Fixation during public events. Interrupted sleep cycles at the kennel. Elevated stress markers during handler transitions. None of it points to aggression. All of it points to unresolved attachment. She says plainly that dogs like Atlas form deep working bonds, and when those bonds are severed without closure, the stress does not simply fade with time. It buries itself. The reframing lands heavily. What some have been whispering about as risk is recast as loyalty that never found an ending. Daniel listens in silence, each word striking deeper than the last. He had told himself Atlas would adjust, that another handler would step in and fill the gap. He needed to believe that to survive walking away. Hearing now that Atlas never fully bonded again feels like a physical blow. His stomach twists. His chest tightens. He stares at the dog, seeing not a retired K9, but a partner left waiting. Doctor. Moore confirms it gently. Atlas worked with others. He performed. He followed commands. But the bond never reset. There was always distance. Always tension. Always a pull toward something unfinished. For a moment it feels like the truth might actually matter. Then the system pushes back. Lieutenant Doyle receives another message from the captain, firmer this time. Policy is cited. Adoption by former handlers under unresolved investigations is prohibited. Liability. Precedent. The language is clean and final. The ranks close. The antagonistic force strengthens, not through volume, but through structure. This is not personal. That is what makes it harder to fight. Emma breaks the silence in the simplest way possible. She looks from Atlas to her father and asks if the dog misses him the way she misses her grandmother. The question is innocent. There is no accusation in it. Daniel's composure shatters. Tears well before he can stop them. He turns away, pressing his lips together, shoulders shaking once before he steadies himself. He nods because words are suddenly impossible. Atlas shifts, a quiet whine catching in his throat before he stills again. The moment changes Daniel. Something hard settles into place. He realizes that leaving again, even now, would not protect anyone. It would only repeat the same harm. He wipes his face, straightens, and looks back at Lieutenant Doyle. He says, quietly but firmly, that he is not leaving without clarity. Not for himself. Not for his daughter. Not for the dog who never stopped waiting. The pause does not last. Event security begins moving people back, creating space that feels less like safety and more like control. The crowd resists in small ways, voices rising, phones lifting higher, as the sense of something unresolved sharpens curiosity. Lieutenant Doyle signals to Officer Grant to keep Atlas steady. The message from command is clear enough even without words. Contain the situation, limit exposure, end this before it becomes something else. Daniel feels the loss closing in. Not just the loss of Atlas, but the loss of the moment. The truth has surfaced, and already it is being boxed back up. Emma tightens her grip on his hand. He leans down to reassure her, but his eyes keep tracking Atlas, measuring distance, angles, movement. The old instincts refuse to shut off. Then the sound cuts through everything. A sharp cry from the far side of the square. Not panic yet, but confusion. A small child slips through the loose edge of the crowd, distracted, chasing something dropped on the pavement. Beyond the barricades, traffic continues to move, drivers unaware of the sudden breach. Officer Grant sees it at the same time Daniel does. His voice snaps out a command, loud and clear, cutting through the noise. Atlas breaks stay immediately, not recklessly, but decisively, responding to clear necessity. His body launches forward in a controlled sprint, angles precise, eyes locked on the child rather than the road. Atlas reaches the child first. He plants himself sideways between the small body and the open street, lowering his center of gravity, blocking forward movement without touching. His presence alone halts the child, startled into stillness by the sudden wall of fur and authority. Atlas turns his head just enough to assess traffic, tail low, stance wide, every movement deliberate. Daniel is moving before he realizes it. He runs, not shouting, not panicking. He reaches the child and scoops them up, pivoting smoothly away from the curb. Atlas adjusts instantly, shifting with him, maintaining the barrier until the danger has passed. Their movements align without discussion, without eye contact, like a unit that never stopped being one. Phones catch everything. Not shaky chaos, but clean coordination. A retired dog responding only after command. A man stepping in without hesitation. No yelling. No confusion. Just competence under pressure. The crowd goes silent in a way that feels different than before. This is not curiosity or discomfort. This is recognition. Parents clutch their children closer. A few people murmur thanks. Someone begins clapping, then stops, unsure if it is appropriate. Officer Grant regains control quickly, calling Atlas back with a firm recall. Atlas returns immediately, posture still alert but calm, tail relaxed now that the threat is gone. He sits without being told, eyes flicking once to Daniel before settling forward. Daniel hands the child to a frantic parent and steps back, breathing hard. Only now does he realize his hands are shaking. Emma stares at him, eyes wide, seeing something new in her father. Not fear, not guilt. Something steadier. Lieutenant Doyle surveys the scene, mind working fast. The incident has cut through every argument. What just happened cannot be dismissed as coincidence or sentiment. It is documented, witnessed, recorded from multiple angles. The pressure cooker reaches its peak. The system wanted quiet. Instead, it has been handed proof. End beat. The crowd stands watching, no longer mocking, no longer murmuring, faced with undeniable competence they cannot unsee. The moment after the rescue is fragile. The crowd is quiet, held in place by what they just witnessed. That is when the order comes down. A uniformed official, newly arrived and visibly irritated, steps forward and announces that Atlas is to be removed from the area immediately. The language is sharp, procedural, final. Liability is implied. Control is asserted. Daniel reacts before fear can catch up. He steps between Atlas and the approaching officer, keeping his hands visible, his posture calm. He says the removal is unsafe. He points out the heat, the crowd density, the dog's current working focus. His voice is steady, not defiant, but it carries authority earned under pressure. The official does not listen. He signals to a security contractor to take the leash. That is the line. The contractor reaches for Atlas. Officer Grant issues a firm stay command, his voice tight. Atlas obeys instantly. He does not move forward. He does not retreat. He squares his stance, weight settling evenly, paws planted. His ears are forward, eyes alert, body locked into controlled resistance. There is no aggression in it. There is no confusion. Atlas is exactly where he has been told to be, and he is not going anywhere. The attempt to pull the leash fails. Atlas does not budge. The crowd gasps. Phones rise higher. Someone shouts to leave the dog alone. Daniel feels the last of his hesitation burn away. He steps fully into the open space, voice carrying now, not shouting, but loud enough to cut through the noise. He identifies himself by name. He states clearly that he is Atlas's former handler. He takes responsibility for the dog's actions. He takes responsibility for the situation. He says if anyone is to be removed, it should be him. The words hang heavy. They are not emotional. They are factual. Lieutenant Doyle moves quickly, stepping between the contractor and the dog. She orders everyone to stand down. Officer Grant tightens the leash slightly, reinforcing Atlas's stay. Atlas remains motionless, eyes forward, breathing controlled. The discipline is unmistakable. The official hesitates, suddenly aware of the optics. A retired police dog standing perfectly still under command, while multiple people attempt to move him, looks nothing like a threat. It looks like professionalism. Emma grips Daniel's jacket from behind, half hidden, watching her father claim ground she has never seen him stand on before. Daniel feels her there and stays steady for her sake. A distant sound begins to cut through the air. Faint at first, then unmistakable. Sirens. Heads turn toward the street. The official's jaw tightens. Lieutenant Doyle's shoulders ease just slightly. Whatever happens next will no longer be handled quietly. Documentation is coming. Supervisors are coming. Witnesses are already here. Atlas shifts his weight only when Officer Grant gives a soft adjustment command. He remains calm, controlled, unyielding. The line has been crossed, and there is no stepping back now. The sirens arrive first, then the vehicles. 2 patrol cars, followed by an unmarked unit. Supervisors step out quickly, their expressions already serious from the radio traffic that brought them here. The scene they walk into is not chaos, but it is charged. A dense crowd, phones raised. A retired German shepherd, standing perfectly still under command. A former handler positioned protectively nearby. The ranking supervisor on scene, Captain Elaine Porter, takes in the details before speaking. She asks for space and gets it. The crowd parts just enough. She asks Lieutenant Doyle for a concise summary. Doyle delivers it cleanly, without embellishment. She reports the recognition incident, the behavioral anomalies, the attempted removal, and the child safety intervention. She does not editorialize, she states facts. Captain Porter turns to Officer Grant next. Grant confirms the commands given, the dog's compliance, and the precise moment Atlas broke stay. He emphasizes that the break occurred only after a clear command and immediate necessity. He explains that Atlas acted exactly as trained, no more and no less. Dr. Moore steps forward when asked. She explains Atlas's behavioral history again, this time with more detail. She speaks of attachment patterns, of working bonds that do not dissolve on paper, of stress behaviors misread as instability. She states plainly that Atlas's actions today are consistent with a well-trained dog operating under pressure, not a liability risk. Phones continue recording. The crowd is quiet, listening now rather than speculating. Captain Porter requests footage. Multiple bystanders step forward immediately. Videos are reviewed on the spot. The angles vary, but the sequence is clear. The child moving toward traffic. The command. Atlas's controlled intervention. Daniel's coordinated response. The clean recall. No confusion, no loss of control. Captain Porter watches without comment. When the videos end, she looks directly at Daniel for the first time. She asks him to explain his role. Daniel answers plainly. He does not defend himself. He does not accuse anyone. He states that Atlas was his partner, that he recognized signs of stress, and that he acted instinctively to protect a child. He acknowledges the investigation attached to his separation without elaboration. The captain nods once. She asks Lieutenant Doyle for the old case reference. Doyle provides it. The name alone shifts the tone. This is not new trouble. This is unresolved history resurfacing. Captain Porter does not offer an apology. Not yet. She does something more important. She acknowledges that Daniel's separation occurred under circumstances that merit review. She states that today's events demonstrate competence, restraint, and professionalism inconsistent with the assumptions attached to his file. It is not a reversal. It is recognition. She turns to Atlas. She kneels briefly, maintaining professional distance, and issues a soft test command. Atlas responds instantly. Calm, focused, clear. Captain Porter stands and addresses the crowd. She explains that Atlas's actions prevented a serious incident. She confirms that all procedures were followed. She thanks the bystanders who recorded responsibly. Then she makes a decision. Atlas is formally cleared for immediate retirement placement. Given the documented bond, the behavioral evidence, and the events witnessed today, Captain Porter authorizes Daniel Reed to begin the adoption process pending routine checks. There are conditions. There is paperwork. There is no shortcut, but the direction is unmistakable. The crowd exhales. Some clap, restrained but sincere. Others simply nod, absorbing the outcome. Captain Porter turns back to Daniel. Her voice is firm, audible to everyone. She thanks him for acting decisively and responsibly. She thanks him for his past service as a canine handler. The words are simple, but public. That is what matters. Daniel stands frozen for a moment, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. He manages a nod. Emma squeezes his hand, beaming. Officer Grant looks at Atlas differently now. Not as a problem, but as a partner with a story that finally makes sense. Lieutenant Doyle meets Daniel's eyes and gives a small, affirming nod. Atlas sits quietly, tail resting on the ground, eyes steady. The chaos that began with laughter ends with something far heavier. Respect, earned and witnessed, settles over the square. The house is quiet in a way Daniel has not experienced in years. No radios. No engines. No constant edge of readiness humming through the walls. Just the low evening light coming through the windows and the steady rhythm of familiar space. Atlas steps inside slowly, pausing at the threshold as if waiting for instruction. Daniel does not rush him. He closes the door gently and gives the dog time to assess, to mark this new place as something different from kennels and stations and temporary stays. Emma moves carefully, mirroring the seriousness of the moment. She brings Atlas a bowl of water and sets it down where Daniel points. Atlas drinks, then lifts his head, scanning the room. His posture is still alert, but the tension that once held him rigid is gone. He chooses a spot near the wall where he can see both the front door and the hallway. He lowers himself there with a soft exhale, settling not into collapse, but into watchfulness without strain. Daniel sits beside him on the floor. He takes out the service collar slowly, hands steady despite the weight of the gesture. Emma kneels close, fingers hovering until Daniel nods. Together they unbuckle the collar and slide it free. Atlas does not resist. He does not flinch. He simply looks at Daniel, calm and trusting, as if he understands the change being marked. They hang the collar on a hook by the door, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of work done and duty honored. Daniel does not feel closure as a dramatic release. It comes quietly, like a pressure easing he did not realize he had been carrying. Over the next hours, Atlas explores the house in short, deliberate movements. He pauses at windows. He checks corners. Each time, Daniel lets him lead. When Atlas finally returns to his chosen spot and lies down again, his breathing is deeper than before. Sleep comes in slow increments, then fully. Emma watches, whispering that Atlas looks happy. Daniel does not correct her. Happiness may come later. What Atlas has now is safety. Later that night, Daniel stands in the doorway, looking back at the dog sleeping on the floor, chest rising and falling steadily. For the first time in years, there is nothing unfinished pulling at him. He does not feel like a handler or a case file or a problem to be solved. He feels like someone who came back when it mattered. Final moral line: loyalty does not expire when the badge comes off.